So the introduction's obviously a little bit about me. I think I've been building now for about 3 years. I started off on the completely opposite end. And I started with a full aluminium build, and then I've worked my way backwards doing 3D printed builds. I've done a mouse droid, R5 domes for me R2, and now down onto an R7. I've done a BB8, a couple of 39.1% drones. So once you slip your toe in the water for this kind of thing, before you know it, you end up with a garage full of droids. So the kit that you've bought or you're potentially interested in is a CSL Styrene kit. And the reason that we've ended up producing these in the UK was my daughter's school STEM club, the headmistress thought it was a really good idea after seeing my R2 that the school could build one. She had no idea how much it was going to cost, and she had no idea of how much work was going to be involved. But she said that they could stump up with the money and we could get one cut. So if anybody's done any research into the styrene kit, I know Jamie and Chris, I think Chris has done styrene builds, but they've been involved from the likes of Dave Everett's plans, which back in the day drew them all out, and you could individually take those plans to a sheet of styrene and carefully, meticulously cut the kit out. Now I attempted that with a classroom full of 14-year-olds with Stanley knives, straight edges, iPhones in one hand, trying to do FaceTime in the other. It was a recipe for disaster. It was taking months just to get a couple of parts which would have no way, they just wouldn't have fitted in the quality that we'd have needed. So I approached, there's a guy called Frank Purs, and he's in America, and he devised a kit. And I believe it was around the same time that Dave was drawing up his plans that Frank was also working on a similar approach, but his is this lock-in tab system that you've all got in your kit. So that's why we've ended up in the UK. I approached Frank, he said, yeah, it's okay. And one of the things that comes from it is also it generates money to whatever the club's charity is. So this year's R2 UK will be presenting a cheque to the nominated charity is for this year. Components in the kit. Now, any of you who have already got one have opened them up and gone, oh my God, I've got 500,000 bits of droid, and where are they all going to go? And I think Elliot has probably been the most organised builder I have ever known, because within a day of actually having it, she was posting pictures how she'd gone through the PDF individually.
They're all organised into boxes as well, and each single part is labelled with a bit of masking tape. I'm like, I'm not getting this wrong.
Yeah, well, that's testament of how to do it. If you've watched the Skims video, you'll notice at one point I realised that I've even left the piece out, and I'm having to shove that in at the end, and that's purely because I've done 6 of these so far in various forms, and it's like, I know what I'm doing, and yeah. If you put the time and the effort to read the PDFs and the YouTube videos, and as you've done, sorted all the parts, it makes life a million times easier.
Yeah, I'd definitely say we'd be a bit stuck if we hadn't labelled the parts, because we'd be like, oh God, where does this go? Yeah. It makes it a lot easier. Yeah,
so many of them as well are just ever so slightly a different angle or slightly larger, or they'll have a different slot on them. So yeah, taking the time to do that at the start pays dividends, but as you can probably see from my workshop, I don't tend to tidy up that much, and there's bits everywhere. So yeah, for anybody who's not bought a kit or isn't involved in it, you start off with a box frame, a shoulder frame that everything bolts to. Now this is just before the meeting started. There was a discussion with regards to when you've got anything that's sat on a pair of legs, you've always got a pivot point at the top. What some people have noticed, if you've not got a tight enough frame or your shoulders are not really screwed down, you can, a small amount of flex. Now, so what we're potentially looking at is like a retrofit box section, which will bolt in there. It'll be made of aluminium, so it'll still be light, and it'll stop any of that small amount of flex. Now, I don't particularly have an issue with it on my R4. I've had that whizzing round on a a community hall, and the flex that I had in there was minimal, wasn't really a problem. But if we do find people are having that issue and you've really tightened it all up again, then we can look at retrofitting this frame. And the cost will be negligible for that. It's just be whatever the materials are. And my brother's a welder, so I'll just lock him in the shed and he can weld a number of them up. So yeah, then we move on to the frame of the actual body itself. Anybody who's seen the kits and the number of ribs and the different orientations that they can go in, again, follow the tutorials that are now on YouTube, follow the individual sections which are in the PDF. We've got highlighted the lad who did all the CNC cutting for it. He actually went through and he highlighted all the individual parts, and they're referenced in the YouTube videos as well, and they're in the PDF so you can cross-check. We've got front and rear engraved skins. Now, unfortunately, when I've done the video, see, I've built my R2 and I've built an R4, so I've gone to do an R7. Now, the biggest issue that you have with those is for the cutout on the front of the skins, you've got an area for the large data port to go in, and that can set the height of the skins, because you put your large data port in and everything's fixed there. Move your skins up to that, and then as you fold it round, your alignment should be done by the shoulder hubs. So on the YouTube video that I've put up, you've got R7 and it shows you how to couple up and make sure that your shoulder hubs are nice and flush, but it doesn't show you how to make sure that the large data port at the front slot. So when you offer it up to your frame, you'll see the cutout for the large data port. Your skin should sit perfectly on that cutout, and your large data port should just slot in, and it should be flush with the top of the large data port, and that'll give you the perfect height. Because then what you'll actually see is the skin will sit ever so slightly proud there, about 1 millimetre, 2 millimetres, and that's, you can work up against that and you can file that. Your skirt, again, that's one where there's a lot of parts to it, and there's not the best drawings on Frank's site. So as part of the tutorial, I'm going to go back over that, we'll film that, and I'll put updated diagrams of actually where they all go in the base. The legs, they're all fully assembled. We're going to put them out in a minute, but they're all assembled. The video's done for that, and they're a box beam construction, so you've got lots of individual pieces that all clip into place to give you the strength. And then for the cosmetics of it, the same as what we do for the hubs for the shoulders, and for the skirt, you skin it in small pieces of styrene. And again, all these pieces come as part of the kit, even down to the parts for the under shoulder details. They're all already cut out for you, so you're literally bonding them in place, trim them so that they're nice and flush, and then you've got your next piece coming down. So there shouldn't be a significant amount of cutting styrene. One of the guys on the Builders Council, Nick, he said to me that he quite enjoyed cutting out the skins, or the time it takes to actually do that. Having done it with the lads who were at the school, there's no way in the world that I've got the time or the patience, and I certainly haven't got enough fingers to be doing that. So I think this is one of the beauties of the kit. But as Nick said, there is a lot of satisfaction from getting the plans and cutting the individual parts in. Following on from that, you've got the centre ankle, and again that's fully skinned. And then we've got the utility arm carrier, the frame that goes within the frame that mounts all the utility arms for. Now, Frank's site has got all the instructions on how to assemble all of them. Likewise, we've got the build log that's on my forum account, which is linked on the thread where people have, if you've ordered one of the kits, then that's where you go on there. And likewise, there'll be a full build up. Even though I've not been putting one on R7, I'll build up the carrier frame that I've got with the R7 kit, and we'll cover that a bit more on that as we go into this little bit of a presentation. So don't worry, I'm not going to rabbit on too much longer. So who's building these kits? Well, currently there's 16 of these kits out there in the wild, and we've got new people who are coming to the hobby. and we've also got a couple of quite experienced builders, and they're finding that it's a great base for the modifications. Darren's done kind of an aluminium hybrid system, which has got some of the sheets of styrene have been removed, and he's included pieces of aluminium in areas that he's believed would need to be strengthened. And then we've also got other people who've said that they're going to modify the actual kit so that it becomes a 232 kit. I dread to think out what's going to be involved to get that to work, but it'll be extremely impressive when you get it working. And having seen some of the capabilities and the experiences and the technical know-how that are in the club, I'm pretty sure the people who are going to do that. The other one that's been a beauty for people is we've historically had kits available, be that the Senna frames, the aluminium frames, but skins have been notoriously hard. You could buy the aluminium ones, or you could individually cut the separate layer ones out yourself. But we've now provided clothing to 6 naked droids, so hopefully next time we have a meet for the R2 builders, we'll have less frames on show. More completed droids. So as I said, who have we actually got building some of these? Some of these pictures that we'll see here, I think the middle one with the aluminium on, I think that's Darren's. I'm almost certain that the black and red one is Chris Carpenter's. I've asked Chris if he could possibly take us through some of his build, so once I just whiz through this last little bit, I'll ask Chris to go over what he's got currently set up, any issues that he might have actually come across, and a quick run through of what he's actually done, just to give my voice a break. And then I think down on the bottom right, it's Mark Nalders. Well, yeah, I think he was one of the first to get the main part of the frame up, but he did have a little bit of a jump start in that he got it August last year, I think it was. And likewise, this is an example of what the legs, where they start out from, where you've got the box frame and then it's been skinned, and then once you've added your boosters and the greeblies, you're going to struggle to tell that they're any different than an aluminium one. The quality and the strength on them is quite exceptional. There are videos out there of people stood on these box frames. Now, I'm quite a weighty guy, so I'm not going to demonstrate that unless it's 250 quid for a U-bin frame. And this was a couple of useful pictures. Mark has put a picture up, a video up, which shows how all the electronics are sat inside of his droid. Now, it scared the life out of me seeing it, because all that weight just sat on an unskinned droid. But this one shows you where you've got the bearing for the Lazy Susan and how that's bolted on the top, and then you can see the upright bolts which would be there to mount the actual droid on top of. And then on the right hand side you can see where a club, a 3D printed horseshoe, how that marries up perfectly well with the top of the legs. Although you'll notice that it's even down to the thickness of the skins to actually make sure that actually marries up. Now, one area I would make sure people, when you're building these or you're going to print the parts on, there's a shim that sits at the back of the horseshoe. Some people miss that. On the files that are on astronaut.net, they're separate. If you use Michael Badley's files, they all come together as one. I use Michael's because there isn't really a requirement for you to have that separate shim, unless you're going to have it so that the horseshoe detaches and gives you access to something, but there isn't really on this frame a requirement to do that. Now, other people might know of the benefit that of having removable horseshoes are. I know on my aluminium build they do, but that's because it covers where they actually everything bolts in. Likewise, one of the good things about the kit is it's got readily available areas for removing the likes of the centre vents. Now, the bit of advice that I'll go on the video when I do the skin, so that is, try not to start hacking it with a Stanley knife. If you're going to make any cuts on it, there's a small amount of like flashing all the way around it that you can cut into that and use a deburring tool or a file and just carefully go back, because it becomes very obvious if you've took too much off and you put agreeably inside there that it doesn't fit. Now, the beauty of the kit is you can always fill a hole, but taking the time and the effort, the parts quite easily pop out. Don't take a lot of pressure. And if on the skins video, you'll notice that one part on the side panel on the kick plate, I can just carefully leverage that until it snaps away, and that leaves a small amount for just a bit of cleanup. But the kit itself, beautiful for being able to just fit the greeblies. The cutouts for all those parts are pretty spot on, and they've all been tested with the files that are on astromet.net. So if you're thinking of building one, or if you're part way through building one, first and foremost, we've got the R2 Builders forum. We've got the parts room where if you've ordered one, or you're thinking of ordering one, that's where you would place the order. I've got my build log, but I've referenced Chris Carpenter's build log, because he's gone to such detail of actually breaking it down to all the nuts, the bolts, what type of electronics is used, where he's actually ordered them from. So that's a very good reference of how you can go about doing your build. And the thing is that this is your build. The frame will be the same, but every single one of your builds will have little quirks and little things that you've done differently or done wrong and covered up. That's why any of us as a build, when we go to one of the meets, go straight to your droid, even though to the uninitiated, every single R2 looks the same. There's links to Frank's R2 media conversions site on the forum and in the part room. Now, the thing with Frank's instructions is, as he has updated parts, he hasn't always gone back and updated the instructions, or likewise, he has updated the instructions off, but not uploaded the actual parts for people to then take to a CNC shop and get cut themselves. So I would cross-check and double-check when you're following something that's on Frank's instructions. Always go back to the build logs. Again, you've got access to our messenger group, the YouTube videos, they're slowly going up, and obviously the Facebook group, the R2 Builders and the Droid Builders UK. If you've ever got stuck, or you've got a query of what should something look like, should this sit flush, should it be cut back, should something stay proud, jump on there and people will be more than happy to help with that information. And likewise, you've all got my contact details anyhow, so always ping me a message. Going forward. Now, the one part that has caught people out, and I'm just going to go over this one, is that the utility arms, all the greeblies and everything that have been used with this kit, I've purposely tested with the files that are on astromet.net, because they're the reference ones to go to. Now, the utility arms are terrible. They've got an inherent weak point that's built into the design. When you when you search the forum, you'll find different variations of it, but I don't want to be saying use this particular one, because what typically happens is people will then modify it. The file doesn't gets updated for various reasons to add a different arm, a linkage. So the files that are on astromet.net, if you print them off, they'll work perfectly fine, they'll fit. You don't need the carrier that's part of that, you get one that comes with the kit. But it doesn't they don't offer themselves particularly well to being able to make them so you can have them automated on a servo. They're quite weighty, and you have to find a means of securing the two parts together. Typically that's drill it out, put a rod in, epoxy a piece of rod in, drill the other parts out, hope that you can get it aligned, and then you've still got to fill and dress those parts. So what a couple of people have fallen foul of is they've used Michael Badley's files, which are absolutely fantastic. They lie flush, you go on the bed and you just glue the two together and they're great. Now the problem that I actually had, and I never realised it, was that they're CSR utility arms. So they won't fit in our CSL frame, not without some modification, which we're trying to do it to a certain specification, so we don't really want to go hacking at the actual the droid. So what Michael has kindly agreed to do is, I've got from the CNC company, they've printed a set of the utility arm carriers and also a section of the skin. So Michael's going to take that and he's going to model using the same kind of design as what he's got for the CSR utility arms, which are spot on. And he's going to model a CS L set, and he's going to also integrate some of the hardware. So you will have, instead of having to mess about with a bar and a couple of nuts and a spacer, you'll integrate that into the actual 3D printed design. You'll still need a couple of the bearings, which will be referenced in the build log. So that should simplify that, and you'll have a perfectly fitting set. So they're going off to Michael this week. So I should hope within a week we'll get those files back off Michael, because he's not reinventing the wheel, and he can do a chopper full design in a week. So one set of utility arms, I'm sure he'll smash them. So I would say if you get to that point, just hold fire until those files are available. Or obviously there's the resin ones which have been tested with the kit, and they work perfectly fine. They've got a little linkage on the back which will fall foul of the actual frame, but you can cut a small slot out and they'll work, no problem whatsoever. So you've got two options there for off-the-shelf options: is the resin parts. I'll wait for Michael's files to become available. If you've not got the ability to make to 3D print some, then let me know. I'm more than happy sort you out with a set of those. Another bit that I'll go over, just because one of the builders asked me to just run through it, is the dome motivators. Obviously, if you're deciding to have a static build, then it doesn't really matter. But if you're going to have a dome that's going to rotate, we've got two options. One's a geared drive, and the other one is a pressure wheel, a friction wheel. Friction wheels are nice and quiet, but the tension on them tends to go, or the grip tends to slip. So you'd end up putting either more adhesives on the inside to give it more grip, or even like a rough sandpaper effect all around the outside, or even stronger and stronger springs just holding it in place. The gears, once they're fitted, they do mesh quite nicely, but they are slightly noisy. The kits that we've got available, when I approached the Builders Club with regards to them, because of the prices that were costing to the CNC, they're slightly outside of what the club expects the price of them to be. So they're just sold as and when they're needed, and the CNC put the parts through to me. Just on the forum, there's in the wanted section, parts market section. Typically, if you was to take the files to a CNC company, they should be able to do them for about £35–40. Mine, the CNC company that I'm using, they want £55 once we've got shipping and everything in. So that's why they're slightly more expensive. But I'm saying, if you shop around, the files are available, you could probably save yourself about 10 or 15 quid. But all my work goes with one CNC company, so I don't really want to start pissing them off. And then the last one was, someone asked me, because they're not actually part of the kit, how do we get the feet on? So I'll give a quick demonstration of how the feet would actually go on. And the decision that you actually have as a builder now is what you're going to make your feet out of. You've got the option of the Styrene kits, you've got the option of 3D printed, or if you want to give it a good solid base on the ground, you've got steel and aluminium. It totally depends on what you're going to do with your droid. If it's going to stay in your house and it's going to be looked after, then a set of 3D printed feet is probably going to be fine, because you're not going to kick it or anything. Styrene ones, a little bit more robust, I think, than the 3D printed ones. I've not got any experience of the Styrene feet, but I've got steel feet on mine, and they're battered from people standing on them, tripping over them, me driving them into doors and things. But it depends how robust you're robust, how aggressive you're going to be with your droid, and what it's going to be exposed to, as well as your budget, obviously, as well. So that was me rabbiting on, just through basically the content to try and give us something to talk about. I said, Chris has got one of the kits, so while I have a quick drink and catch my breath, I'll ask Chris to just quickly run us through what he's been building and what he's done. If that's okay, Chris?
Yep, not a problem by me, if everybody's happy with my yam voice.
Got one myself, Chris.
Thanks, Mark. That was good.
So what I want to just quickly take you through is just some of the objects that we've used or we're using along the way. So really first is a tools bench, mainly to do with what we've done. So good set of grips and pliers and clips, good set of holders for a lot of the kit. Now you really want probably two of each. Wilco's and a couple of the companies do some really cheap sets, but they're still good sets of grips to hold the styrene kits together. These are bands for going round when you're gluing in your body frame to your front skins and rear skins. There's a couple of different types out there. Some of them have got metal hooks on. I don't personally recommend them because then you've got a bit of a point where it sort of catches onto the frame and bends it and twists it slightly. So if you can get the set that sort of wrap all the way round and back on themselves, ratchet straps of that type. Mark referenced this wonderful tool which everybody really needs to have, deburring tool. Basically just cleans up and sorts out the edges, your knives, your files, screwdrivers, varying other items within that. Most of that is pretty much stuff that you can pick up from any sort of hardware store or any sort of major shop or anything like that. Most of that stuff's within there. People might even be able to lend you stuff if there's bits out there that they're not using within there. Nuts and bolts. Get asked quite regularly where people are getting all their nuts and bolt kits from. You can pretty much search through eBay a lot of the stuff that you're getting. Amazon have quite a lot of it on. I was a bit naughty. I went to B&Q and I just picked all mine up there. So it's probably I paid a lot more for my stuff because I just picked it up in there. But I picked it up in bags of 10s and 20s because I was never 100% sure exactly what I wanted. But as Mark's already said, on my build log, I've listed all the sizes, all the types of nuts, bolts, washers, and everything down into a kit. So you've got 16 countersunk M6 for the shoulder hubs. You've got 3 M8s, which are for your ankles, and then I've got 2 round-headed M6s with the cross dowel in the end of them ankle. Pretty much your 16 bolts. So in your frame, you have your 4, which sit in the shoulder hub. I've gone slightly rogue once again because that's what I tend to do. So instead of the 4 which actually come out and into the shoulder, I've actually gone through the actual leg and into the shoulder hub itself, and then I've washed and I've put nuts on the inside of the frame. It adds an extra layer onto it, in my personal opinion, but everybody else can go whichever way they want. They're pretty much strong enough one way or the other. It was just a personal preference of mine. Ankle bolts, the 3 M8s, which sit inside. The 2 that go through the feet should go straight through the holes, one side into the other. And on the centre foot, quite difficult to see this one, but it actually sits very much on the inside and goes straight through the middle of the ankle section. And then your 2 dowels, cross rods, which actually go inside the frame. Remember to put them in before you glue all of the other bits on the outside of it, because you'll never get them back in after that. and then I put a touch of glue on the actual inside cross dole so it sits in the same place all the time, so I can take these in and out as much as I want, and they won't go out of place every time you want to take the foot off and move them through. So, as Mark said, I made the classic mistake, and I printed off Mr. Badley's files and then ended up with a CSR not knowing, and you can see here where it doesn't sit correctly with the actual file itself. So I'm going to wait on the new ones, and hopefully I can put them in place when they come. So when I did my frame, I did it as per the instructions. I did the bottom first, the inside, or the boning, and then I skinned around the outside. Now, I have painted mine, but I do recommend that you do all of your cutouts before you do your painting. It's just, as I say, I go a bit rogue with these things. I got a bit bored and I painted it one day because I had some paints in the shed. But that's just me, and that's just how it goes. So I'm currently in the process now of, I've had this up and running. It has been up and down the road a few times. I've just taken it apart now because I'm doing all the Greebly sets now. So I'm printing them off, painting them, and then putting them in place. And then as I finish off them sections, I'll take them all out, and then I'm going to do a final paint across the skin. Painting the skins, pretty much it's a layer of filler, it's a good sand down, and then it's a paint straight on top of that. The skins have taken to the paint quite easily. I don't believe they need any prep work. I did lightly sand them all before I started painting them, but of course it just needs it. I just went over them with a mouse sander, really, and just quickly just buzzed over everything that sat on the outside. And some of the parts that were glued, I just went over it with light sanding just to make sure it's got a little bit of a rough texture, just to be able to go through each one of the sections. And when you put the glue together, it holds just a nice grip on there as you're doing it. And that's pretty much about it for the Friday.
Nice one. Cheers, Chris.
Not a problem.
As you see there, as Chris's first build of a droid, and he's put his own little spin on things, a little bit of tweaks, done things in a different order, and he's at a point there which is he's not far off a fully functional droid. I'll go over a couple of bits that I can't recall who it was who wanted me to go over it, but we've got the base piece for the droid. Wanted some clarification with regards to what the cutouts are for and why we've got assorted different holes. Now, when you get your kit, you'll see at the side we've got a place that's got two little cutouts on it. So they're always going to be the side of the droid, and then you've got a front and the back of the actual droid, the larger cutout section. So where they're across from each other, that's the front and the back, and then at the sides, that's where you've got these. It was Oliver Steeples gave me the file to overlay over the original. Frank's actual kit doesn't have this piece cut out. What he expects you to do is either trim the bottom with your 3D print or cut these parts out. Now, after the fact, that's a very difficult thing to do. So what a couple of people have managed to do is either glue it in front at the back or that way, when it should be that way. Now, if you reference on the actual on the website, it shows you where you've got the cutout for the front and the rear. Like if you put it, once you put it in place, all your ribs should be perfectly straight. If you find you're having to bend one either way, what that actually is these slots are ever so slightly different locations as you go around the droid. So it just means you pull them on one way. So if you offer it up, and the good one is the skirt, the base piece for the skirt, That has got a dot in the front of it which shows you the front anyhow. So if you overlay the two of them and then overlay that onto your droid, and as all of your brace pieces are perfectly straight, with the exception of the ones which go on the cutout, because they just sit proud of it, but they will still clip into your skirt. So the skirt one will have all the mounts. This one's, because this has got cutouts, hasn't got a couple of points in. So it's take the time and effort when you're doing it. Make sure you've got front at the front. Sounds obvious, and the cutouts for these are where the octagon ports are on your droid. So cross-check on the videos, cross-checking with the plans. As long as all of your ribs are perfectly straight and it clips in onto the skirt base, all the parts, then you've got it right way down. If you're finding something's a little bit off, cross-check the drawing and cross-check the video, because once it's in, it can be a bit problematic to get it to be fixed. I mean, everything's fixable. You can literally, bearing in mind the Dave Everett files didn't have any of these cutouts. So they were just literally aligned up, glued in, and put in. So that's what you would eventually have to do. If you do get one wrong, you'd end up cutting it till it's in perfectly in line and then gluing it in place. But a little bit of time and effort while you get that dry fit done saves dividends. The other one was, how do we put together the dome motivator? So if you decide you're going to have it so that they'll actually move, what are all the components that you get? Because you get a box full of cogs and components, and you don't need all of them. And the reason for that is you might use slightly different motors or drive gears. So it'll come with this, which is your main drive cog that's going to sit on top of the Lazy Susan. Now when you look at it, there's a number of holes, and the reason for it is the club typically uses 3 different bearings. One's from a Dutch company, Bylin. If you get in touch with them and tell them you're building an R2D2, they just send you the R2D2 Lazy Susan. There's the Rockler bearing, which I think is typically imported from Canada, costs an arm and a leg, runs lovely and smooth, but you pay import duty, shipping, or this one, which is 20 quid off Amazon. The compromise on it is that it's not quite, from the off, it's not quite as smooth, but you can actually service them, or a little bit of lithium in them. And bearing in mind, it's also sat within a dome, which insulates some of the sound anyhow. So the reason I'm rabbiting on about 3 different types is this ring has actually been drilled out to marry up with the holes that come on those 3 bearings. So if you order a Bylin one, you're not going to need to modify it, or the Rockler, or the current Amazon one, which I can provide links for. So that's going to bolt on top of your droid in that orientation. So you've got your drive gear set on top, and then your dome will sit on this ring on the outside here, secured by bolts which pass up through it. So that's going to bolt on top of your droid. Doesn't really matter where you're going to screw that on. That'll be dictated by the holes that you've got in your bearing. Just bear in mind that all your ribs that you've got coming down, you want to get a socket on. You don't want to get one of these holes over the top of one of the ribs. The little bit that gets tricky, I wish I could remember who asked for the breakdown on the parts. But when you open the box, you're going to come up with 2 of them, and this pieces, and it's like, well, where do these all go? You've got this piece which is going to go inside your frame, and that size there is scaled for a Pitman motor, which is the recommended motor. I think they're about 70 or 80 pounds. Then you've got to get them shipped over. The club has, on occasion, managed to do a bulk buy of them. So if you see them, it's worth dropping on one of them, because they're a high torque motor, it's a geared motor, and they've been tried and tested with the aluminium dog. That's what I did on my first aluminium one, because that's what the club said. I've kind of gone, how can I build my droid the cheapest and most effective way? for me R4, and that's where I'm using this, which is a 950 DLN series single ratio gearbox, and they're only about £20. So you're saving yourself 50 quid shipping, import duty, all sorts, and it does the same job. It's fast enough to the point which you have to be a little bit careful on diagram. Can I vouch for how long it's going to last? Not really, to be entirely honest, but for £20 to try it as opposed to £70 or £80 or whatever shipping, you're going to clear £100 on that. The pattern for mounting your droid, your dome gear, you have to go to Active Robots, get one of these, which is a motor hub connector, and it depends on the diameter of your spindle on your motor, which size you get. This is a 1/4 inch one. That mounts on there. It's held in spec place with a grub screw. You know, Chris is doing a bit of a demo as well. And what you'll have is a drive gear, and the hole pattern for that matches up with the holes that you've got within there. So that's going to bolt to that, and then that sat on top of your motor. So the final part is how do you mount your actual motor to your drive, to your droid, which is where this piece comes in. You've got two pieces. You've got that one, blank one, which is if you want to re-drill, if you need to drill it for a custom motor that you've got, then you can do that. But this one is, it's got the hole pattern that will fit the Pitman motor, and this motor has got the same hole pattern. And it's to perfectly fit that in place. So to mount that to your droid, laminate those two pieces together, screw your motor into there, and then that curvature that you've got, show it better, that you've got on the base of this, there, that is the internal circumference of your frame. So that's bolted in. I've just used 3 bolts bolted into the droid. That with the hub on top, meshing up with what you've got on the birdie. Now they had drawings on the website. I wish I could remember who particularly asked for that as a demonstration. But if you were online and it still wasn't clear, then drop me a message after the meeting, and we can go back over it again. I'll film it as well as for the build on R7, so you've got that one.
Mark, do you use any lubricant or grease or anything on that, or just leave it completely empty?
I've got a white lithium grease, a very slight amount of it. You don't want it spraying all over the place, but I notice it does make a little bit of a difference just to quieten it slightly. The only other question was off someone who wanted to know about how you fit the legs to the feet. So this is the legs which I'm just going to finish the last part of the skinning of these. If you're actually getting to this point, it's worth remembering that you've got, as part of the design of the frame, because on the R2 you've got an engraved groove that runs all the way around the egg. When you build this up from the kit, you get pieces of styrene to skin that, but where the ribs are, I'm not sure if I can really make that out there, where the ribs are for the structure inside, you need to file that down with just a small needle file, just so you've got a continuous engraved ring all the way around the outside. You can do it once it's been skinned, but it's easier to do it before you put that top skin on. Anyway, I've digressed there. So that's your centre ankle. Sorry, that's your outer ankle. The club specification of that is up to about 1 inch. So you've got, this is one of the steel bookshelves that we're working on. And the mechanism for mounting that, as Chris said, is just an M8 bolt which is going to go in. It goes across that centre channel here, and you've got a panel on that side. Now, it depends if you've got a 3D printed one, you haven't got an option to remove that. So, outside part of your ankle, once that's built up, it's going to go towards the outside part of the droid. That slots within there. And you've got an M8 bolt that runs all the way through the middle of it. It can be quite tight, so the reason why you're going to have on one side there, if you're not going to have a removable plate on that side, is your bolt should just about give you enough for the purchase of one nut, so you can get the nut in, off of the bolt into there, tighten it all up, and then, well, fortunately, you shouldn't really be taking these off very often. Once you've got that in place, the only part that you will need to fabricate is this angle that you've actually got here is what ensures that your drivetrain sits permanently on the floor. And what you'll see if you Google online, and I'll put some links on the build as I get to it, is ankle locks to prevent the wheel doing this. When you put it under drive, obviously the torque of it can start to cause it to do a full wheelie. So once these are actually in place, you fit an ankle lock, and I think Chris actually made his out of a chopping board. You can get a template, cut the piece out, and then just screw them to the ankle there to fix these in place. So you've got the correct ankle for the leg on a level drivetrain for the foot. And I think that's it for all the questions that I had with regards to where do we find the information. Done the bone motivator. Progress to date with regards to the tutorials. So I've got the legs that I'm going to skin, they'll go up. I'll do that as the same tutorial as the construction of the legs. I'll do the centre ankle, and then we've got the skirt as well. And then that should be pretty much it for the YouTube videos. As I going to do a little bit of development thing to see whether we can make an aluminium box frame that will go within the middle part of the droid. We've got the redesigned utility arms that Michael's going to do for us, so that's the development side of it on the club. Currently it's about a week and a half for the lead time to get a full kit together. If you've got any questions or anything else you want to ask.
There are a few points, mate. I may have missed it, so apologies if I did. What glue do you recommend? I
would strongly say I wouldn't recommend it because it's bloody awful stuff. But the dichloromethane is what is typically used for bonding the frame together. And then I use for the greeblies, while I'm initially putting them in place, I'll typically use a hot glue gun just to hold them, because you give a little bit of, and then I'll epoxy them in with a 2-part epoxy. Or you can silicone them in. Yeah.
Okay, so the first one you were saying you wouldn't really recommend it. It's just health and safety, isn't it, really? You've just got to be very aware on the fumes and any splidges and such like.
Well, the crazy thing is I was a chemical shift manager for the plant that used to make the stuff. So when you hear me always beating on about using an AX filter for dichloromethane, anybody who's older than maybe about 30 and used to use a paint stripper with nitromorse, it used to be fantastic stuff, but they used to find people dead in the bath, and they were using it for stripping the paint off the old cast iron bats. So when they did more work into it, it's a derivative of chloroform, so it was knocking people out in the back. And then when they've done more and more testing on it, it's come out that it's actually a carcinogenic. So in an environment like a garage, you absolutely 100% should be wearing an AX filter. They're not super expensive, they're available from Arco in the UK. And they will protect. If you're smelling dichloromethane, then you're already overexposed to it. So you're best to be doing it outside in a well-ventilated area. I still recommend using the
but it's great stuff because it melts the plastic together. Doesn't it?
I would always recommend doing it outside at the best.
Yeah.
It's probably the only thing that you can use that is a guarantee to give you that good permanent bond. You're effectively making one piece of plastic from bonding the two of them together, because you can visibly see it melt, bond and cure, and you end, if you've got a little bit of compression on it, you can see effectively a small little weld that's in there. So it's the ideal stuff. It probably is the only stuff, but I don't think that I could hand on heart recommend it. But use the PPE that's, again, in the tutorial. There's references on there, but an AX filter is what you need.
Okay. The other thing you mentioned, actually, Mark, was about when you're doing a build, to consider whether it's going to be static or moving.
Yeah.
Because there are slightly different approaches. But I would suggest to anyone that's thinking of making a static droid, research about having it driving, because you may want to get it moving at a later date. So it's worth keeping that in mind, and maybe, you know, allowing yourself to add motors and so on at a later date. Certainly keep that in mind. Would you not say that, Mark? Would you agree?
The beauty of the Frank's kit is that it actually comes as part of Frank's design. Obviously, all the way down the inside of the leg is 2 channels, which are dead easy for running cables in. However, the way that he designs it is that it spits the cable out of a hole that's on the side of the inside of the foot. And there's a cable channel that goes there now. Now, Lee will be able to envisage what's actually happening on that when you put inside the foot. You're permanently pinching your cable because it's coming out the side of that foot and being trapped against the side of the horseshoe. Of the foot shell. What I recommend and what I've done on mine is you come straight out the bottom and into the top of your foot shell.
Yeah.
You'll still be hidden by the ankle, you won't see it, but you've not got that pinch point, you've not got that kept point for cable fatigue. Again, it's in the build log. When I get to actually edit finally the legs video, it's in that as well. But it's worth running the cables, as Lee says, in case you ever particularly want to. And most people, if you've gone to the trouble of buying this kit, it's designed to have the strength to be a driven droid and to take the weight of it. So I would certainly consider, as Lee says, get the cables in as a minimum.
Yeah, I would. And some good advice from Chris as well. I'll add to just what Chris was saying. The hardware, if you go to B&Q, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they still do this, Chris. You can buy a pick and mix bags. So if you've got a shopping list of what you need for your R2 build, you can get a large bag and put all the bolts in there, and then you pay a one-off price for that bag of bolts, don't you? Whatever they are.
Yes, so they do a pick and mix bag. It's like £2.30 for a medium bag and £4 some odd for a big bag. I costed, working out the bolts individually, if you bought them as single items, and it came to over £50 for all the bolts. Buying them in packs, you can get it down to £30 or £40, but then you've got to get rid of the excess ones you've got, or you do keep them as spares. Now, it's always good to have spares, especially when you're out and about. And certainly if you start trooping or getting your droids out there, it's always good to have a set of spares. So you may want to think of, when you're ordering, I know I want 16 because that's how many's in the hub, but you might want 4 or 5 extra just in case.
Yeah, and that's also the same with if you're buying bolts on eBay, which is obviously another option, or Amazon. If you're buying 10 bolts, £2.10 for a pack of 10 bolts, something like that. If you're buying 100, some of them like double the price for 100 bolts instead of 10. So have a look at if there's quantity options. Always have a look at the quantity, because if you are continuing to build or whatever, it may be cost effective just for you to buy the 100 rather than 10.
And we're all in the chat together, so there's no reason why you can't say, does anybody else want bolts at this time?
That's true. Yeah.
I'll order a pack of 50. We'll split them between the two of us, half the cost.
Yeah,
exactly. And we can do that. So I bought packs of 10s, 20s and 50s when I was doing stuff. So I've already forwarded on some of the bolts that I've had over and above out. because I bought more than I needed to.
I'm just going to cut out the middleman and make Chris the bolt supplier for the.
There you go.
I have thought about this, and I've came up with the name of Ginger's Nuts.
Okay.
There you go. Okay. No need to explain that one. The only other thing I was going to say is the motors that you had, Mark. I think that's a great idea. Those 20-pound motors.
Yeah.
You know, they may burn out, but you know, I would say they're great. The Pitmans are tried and tested, but you're getting what you pay for there. You know, they are expensive. However, I believe there will be some offered on astromech.info fairly soon, some Pitman motors. So there's some coming into the UK that we can ship without any import duty or anything. So
there you go. Get on them quick.
Watch this space. So yeah, keep an eye on that. I don't know when they are. It's nothing to do with me, but I have heard a rumour. So that's all I was going to add. So job well done, Mark. I'll let you carry on. But
I'm not sure whether I've got the right Pitman motor, but the one that I got is huge.
That looks a bit big.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
But it works perfectly. It's great.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure it does. I've never used Pitmans, to be honest with you. I do the 20-pound motors. I've never spent a lot of money on a dome motor. So
I picked this up as a bargain off eBay.
Okay. Yeah.
Literally, it was £10 off eBay. And once again, if you've got the time and the patience, you can start looking for stuff now to fit later on.
Yeah.
Don't have to go and get everything now. Take your time with the build, especially with the skinning of them. And you can just pick up things along the way. Just keep a watch list on Facebook or on eBay for items for when they come on. Have a saved list of stuff, and then just you can pick them up as you come along, or just keep an eye out for some of these things.
Yeah. As you said, then take the time on the skins. A couple of people have commented on how quickly I'd managed to skin the droid in like the best part of 20 minutes. It was 3.5 hours long, that video of lining everything up, making sure it was right, clamping it, checking it, go back again. I didn't want you sitting through a 3.5 hour video, so I've edited that down, but don't try and do it in 20 minutes because yeah.
No.
I'll be trying to organise another set of skins for you if you do that.
And don't try and do both parts in one day. That's my recommendation. I took one skin one day, one skin another day.
Yeah, there's no race. It's not first past the finish post. And I regret my aluminium build. I did rush that. There was parts of it where I was just wanted to get it together, as opposed to enjoy the fact that you're actually building something that's quite unique. There's not a lot of, there's a lot of people in the club that've got them, but there's not a lot of people in the world that can say they've built their own droid. So take your time to do it properly. Ask questions. As I say, I'm always here if you need anything. I was going to say whatever time of the day, but
regret that.
Anybody got any more questions or anything you want to ask, even if it's not related to the Styrene Kit? It's good to see Michael there. How you doing, Michael Glover? Snuck in last.
Yeah, snuck in late as normal.
The utility box, Mark, the utility holder.
Yeah.
The large data port, does that sit on top of that?
Ever so slightly. No, it doesn't. No.
Because how does the LDP then fit to the frame?
It's just bonded it on either side of the.
On either side.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what you could actually do once you've got the utility arm in, you can put a shim underneath it and then bond it back.
Yeah, because they come with some shims, don't they?
Well, the shims are to give it the right height so that it sits squarely behind the utility arm frame. So,
yeah.
So you've got it in the right height.
Yeah.
Even with those, I didn't find that it sat particularly flush. So I clamped it all in place and then bond all that.
Yeah, because it'd be interesting to have a look at the mod that you said that you did before with cutting out on the utility box for fitting the DJ designs, the resin utility arms, because they come with that spur on the back that's,
Yeah, mine don't. Mine are just manual. You can just open mine. I cut the little arm off. But all you're literally doing is the arm sticks out to the side. Can't really.
Yeah, because I'm not having mine on servos. Well, not planning to have mine on servos at the moment.
Yeah.
but I'm probably just going to be fitted in with magnets or something to make sure they don't just flop open when you go over a bump or something.
Yeah, typically because the droid's sitting backwards, they sit in the.
Yeah.
You don't really have them flopping over, but if you're gonna potentially in the future, all it literally is either side of the carrier box, where the arm would fall foul of it, you cut a little slot in. That's what Chris is trying to show what he's
trying to find the right angle, but holding me.
Let's have a look.
There we are, just there. So all I did is I took a drill to it and basically cut a moon out on the back section.
Yeah.
So the top one is as it should be, and then the bottom one is the carrier I cut out of it. As you can see.
Yeah. They're not DJ ones, are they, Chris?
No, they're Michael Bradley's ones. So basically, there's a aluminium tube that goes through that, and then I've got a washer and bolt that goes through that holds it in place.
A good build log to follow for that is Franco's build log, because he actually he automates the Astromet.net utility arms, and he drills a bar into the back of them. So the part that you would need to do, Chris has cut all of that to give you nice big clearance out. But with the way that Franco's done it, he drills a bar, mounts that into the back of the utility arm, and then you just need a slot then for that to pull forwards and pull back.
If we can get a link to that'd help maybe, Mark.
Yeah, I'll
not now, but yeah,
I'll make a note and I'll put the link in the build log that's for it as well. In fact, what I'll probably, because there are people who are going to want to do it, I may well modify my utility arms and that, because I'm not fitting a set to R7, but I could modify the utility arm carrier to show you what you.
That'd be helpful.
Do that. Yeah. So, have you got all those parts all painted up and prepped yet, Michael?
Not yet. Because I had that LDP there, I managed to get the skins on and stuff, so looking quite good at the minute.
Go on, let's have a look then. Is it there?
Let's see if we should be able to turn this round, I think.
Look at that. Very good.
Bit by bit. Still plenty to do.
Nice one. Good job. So if nobody else has got any more questions or anything like that? No?
I've got one little piece that I've had a problem with. I'm had to redesign, which is the rear power coupler.
Right.
I struggled. So this was the original one off the .net, but I struggled to get it in basically because the rear section is thinner than the front one.
Yeah.
So I did a quick redesign in a 3D Builder and angled the two sides on that one, which then means it's easier to actually fit in and slot in than it was. So that one's just a quick one. I don't know how to get it on astromets.net yet and see whether I can get that uploaded as just an additional one as a rear version.
Yeah.
But I'll have a look into it and see whether I can. If not, I've got the STL for it. I can always send it out if anybody needs it.
Yeah, if you could provide that, then as a minimum, I can make sure it's linked and referenced on the build log for it. The person to probably talk to, because Oliver's involved with the Worldwide Club for .net, so have a word with Oliver Steeples about getting that all updated on it. Yeah, it goes with it. It's a bit of an unnerving. You put a square piece into a chamfered hole, and it goes, but it distorts the frame until you get the clink in place, and then it's still very, very tight. So, to be entirely honest, if you've got that, send me a copy of it, and I'll print myself another one off.
As I said, we're all in this together. So as we go through, if you've got something new, share it. If you've not got something that's new but you need something, just ask.
Yeah, that's 100% why we've got the separate messenger group for the people who are doing these Styrene builds, because they're a different kit. There's different quirks with them, and we've got little workarounds and things like that someone's probably done, and they might have even done it while they were building it and not really realised it.
So you can just openly ask for stuff then, Chris, you reckon?
Sorry?
just openly ask for stuff because I'm eyeing up those horseshoes next to Mark there, mate.
No, Mark. Keep your eyes in your head.
That was worth a go, wasn't it?
In answer to your question about the other horseshoes, though, they're being cut as we speak with the styrene builder.
Yeah. Cool.
So as soon as I get back, I don't know if you're aware of the process that we go through for clearing, making sure that the parts that we're supplying comply with. So Oliver Steeples, he's the UK guru when it comes to the actual specifications. So anything that we supply via the club has to be cleared that it meets exactly the specification. So I can't just say, I'm going to get one of these from the CNC company and pass it to you. What I have to do is get the parts, cut them out, show them to Oliver either in person or send him countless measurements and designs of how I've put it together. And then that gets cleared and they agree on the price. As I say, with the dome motivators, there was the concern that you could probably shop around and get that cheaper. I don't think you'll manage that with there's that many laminated parts for the horseshoes, but they're coming at £95, which is about the same as what it would cost you for the MDF ones from the States. And it's certainly, when it comes to the print time for horseshoes. But if anyone is struggling for 3D prints and stuff like that, you haven't got access to it, there's a cleared guy that's on the forum, Ben. He does 3D prints, and likewise, if you do need anything, let me know, and I will help you out with doing them. As you can see at the moment, it's all quiet in here, but that was kind of intentional. I've been printing millions of face shields, and I'm going to be jumping on this tonight. You don't want all the printers all wearing off, so I've allowed a quiet time at the moment. But yeah, the horseshoes are coming.
Good.
As we move through, if there's other bits and pieces people need, I think battery boxes are probably going to be another one that
booster covers as well, really.
Well, the booster covers again, there is a styrene kit that you can cut them all out with, and you start using pieces of straws to make all the recess parts, but they are quite complicated, and
it's easy to get a 3D, I suppose, isn't it?
But the 3D printed ones, they'll fit on a standard Creality, so you don't need the big S5 to actually get them on. They will go on diagonally, but again, they're quite a weight of plastic, which is I think Ben charges 50 quid for a set of the two of them, whereas styrene wise, it's very little. But again, depends whether you want to make a donation to the blood bank with chopping fingers off and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you come unstuck and you can't get hold of the booster covers, I mean, there are aluminium ones available, and they're a lovely bit of kit, but again, it all sits on your budget.
But they're going to be painted anyway, aren't they? So you're never really going to know whether they're aluminium or styrene.
Yeah, and that's the thing for me. I've got a full aluminium droid there, and I park it up at R2 UK, and you're like, well, which one's the aluminium one that costs a bloody arm and a leg, and which one's the styrene kit one that someone's took the time and effort to put into? So yeah, unless I think the only part that I would say is like to Lee's domes. If you can stretch to one of them, that's the aluminium part that's going to make your droid really stand out. Again, Michael Bradley's files for the 3D printed ones are great, and there are a lot of techniques out there now that can make them look like aluminium. But I would certainly invest in the time if you want an aluminium. Here's him show. Is that Lee's or is that?
That's Michael Bradley's.
Yeah. So if you put the time and effort into sanding them, but to get it, I mean, the R7, that's a Michael Bradley file, but I know I'm not going to try and make that look like an aluminium dome. Personally, if I was going to spend 600 quid on a styrene kit, then the similar in the finishing piece of resistance on the top is worth, especially because they're available in the UK. If you're trying to import one of Darren's from the States, the shipping cost, and then you get hit with import duties is
you're welcome, mister. No, John. Yeah. You're welcome, mister.
Right, okay. I think I'm going to shoot for watch a bit of telly, unless anyone's got any more questions.
Thank you for doing it, Mark.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
Okay.
Cheers, Mark.
I expect your order soon, Ian.
Yeah.
Take care, Mark. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
See you now.
Thanks, Mark. That was great.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.